welcome everyone. I'm thrilled you're here today for this partner exclusive webinar, Win Bigger Deals, the Hidden Value of Accessibility Services. This isn't just about a compliance conversation. This is about how your agency can lead, grow, and stand out, all by offering accessibility services that are in high demand across the digital space. And we're going to unpack how accessibility can protect your clients, unlock new revenues for you, and give you a serious edge in today's competitive market. So let's go through today's agenda. So here's what's ahead. This will be kind of the blueprint for growing revenue while driving more value to your clients. We're going to start with introductions and overview. You'll hear from me, Shoya, and Chandra on how each of us and our backgrounds can support your success as a partner. We're going to then dive into accessibility solutions. So a quick refresher on our tools, from automation to services like VPATs and audits and design to scale accessibility for each and every one of your clients. Then we'll do the revenue you're missing. We'll highlight where agencies are leaving money on the table and how to start capturing it. Then really important is the compliance requirements. We'll explore how what's being done under the US and global law and how you can help your clients stay ahead. And then we'll do kind of a pitch to have how to help your clients. We'll give you the tools and the framing to turn accessibility into powerful sales advantages. And lastly, we're going to have a Q&A. We'll wrap it up with questions. So let's get started. Next slide. So myself, my name is Josh Basil, and I live and breathe accessibility each and every day. After a beach accident in 2004 left me a C4-5 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders, and a power wheelchair user, I turned my journey into a mission to break down barriers and to turn obstacles into opportunities for people with disabilities. Today, I'm a trial attorney. For the last 10 years, I've been a board attorney, founder of a nonprofit, Spinalpedia, a proud dad, the community relations manager here at accessiBe, and earlier this year, I was honored to be joined the first ever Forbes 100 accessibility list. And at accessiBe, I work with our partners and customers across industries, helping them build inclusive digital spaces and grow their reach. So I'm going to now pass it over to Chandra Smith.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. I am Chandra Smith. I'm an IT engineer and 508 compliance officer on the Defense Intelligence Agency's IT accessibility team. I lead policy, IT governance, and data management, accessibility auditing for the agency's information communication technology, and I complete the agency's OMB accessibility report to Congress. And that is a tool that measures our maturity, highlights gaps, and guides our shift from basic compliance to digital products that truly enhance warfighter capability. I've worked in the intelligence field for over 10 years now as an IT engineer, starting at the Central Intelligence Agency, then as a Deloitte contractor, and joining the Defense Intelligence Agency in July 2019. So I started out as an engineer, just working on top secret projects. I volunteered to help set up our 508 office, and what began as curiosity quickly became purpose-driven work, improving accessibility in day-to-day IT and organizing DIA's first IT accessibility symposium.
Chandra, you're awesome.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I was just saying you're awesome. But
Oh,
keep
thank
going.
you. Alrighty. So 9 months after diving into accessibility, my life changed. I had a medical emergency that left me a triple amputee, stroke survivor, and a wheelchair user. So I spent a year in rehab, relearning all the daily living skills, enduring 9 months in a burn unit, and overcoming a prognosis that gave me a 1% chance to live. So this happened in 2021, and with leadership support in assistive technology, I returned to the Defense Intelligence Agency to continue to ensure our environments and tools are accessible. My lived experience informs my advocacy. I won two advocacy competitions and was crowned Miss Wheelchair Maryland 2023 and a national competition, making me Miss Wheelchair America 2024. I also serve on the State Independent Living and Rehabilitation Councils, and I believe we can design a world where everyone thrives no matter their abilities. And I'm committed to making that vision operational for everyone. And I'm happy to be with you all here today. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Chandra. And Shoya, Glaf, we're passing it along to you now.
I'm super happy that both of you, super impeccable people, went before me, but it's hard to live up to the standards that you've created. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is Shoya Clough. I'm an account executive here at accessiBe. I'm actually one of the top account executives here. I've been with this company for almost 3 years. My intention of choosing the next place that I wanted to live, I actually moved from Jersey to New York, next to each other, but I wanted to get into a purpose-driven company that had true track record of giving back to the community. And I didn't know what that looked like. And fortunately, I fell into accessiBe, and I've been here for almost 3 years. And I wish to still be here beyond that and doing the incredible work and pay my part into doing so. And though I'm an account executive here, we also accessibility consultants, and my specialty happens to be in our services department. So VPATs, audits, PDF remediation, any type of manual accessibility in any type of digital environment is where I tend to shine. But holistically, I am very adept to what we provide for our clients on a organic scale when it comes to accessibility. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Shoya. And we have great speakers today. And then also I just want to thank everyone for being here today. The fact that you're joining us, you're part of the disability community, you're part of the accessibility community. Together, we are stronger. Together, we're not alone. And together, we can educate the world, our clients, and beyond how to do better within accessibility. So let's dive right into it. So we're going to get started on the next slide, and we're gonna tackle compliance. So digital accessibility lawsuits tied to the Americans with Disabilities Act have risen 73% since 2018. This means thousands and thousands of websites across the country. And they aren't just hitting like the tech giants, it's hitting small and mid-sized businesses, which are being targeted just as much. Many don't even realize that their websites are not compliant until they're served with the legal papers, which I'm a trial attorney, and I do not want any of my clients to be served with legal papers. And the feelings that they go through when they do, it's tough. So as an agency, you're the first line of defense. You're often, offering the accessibility services where you get to protect your clients, and it also allows you to create new revenue streams in the process. It is important that your clients hear from you before they get served. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they were let down or not properly advised. So in my opinion, web accessibility is just as important as building in security to a website. Next slide. So kind of why we're here today. So being paralyzed below my shoulders, I use a lot of assistive technology devices to go through my computer, to go through websites. I use a screen reader technology that reads websites to me, reads the words, the drop boxes. I use an on-screen keyboard to be able to jump from different parts of the page. And when accessibility is not built in, I can get stuck on the home page. I can't put in my credit card information. I can't navigate it the way I need to navigate it to have good experiences. So when accessibility is not built into a website, it's a horrible feeling, and I'm left feeling on the sidelines or having to beg for help from a family member or friend if and when they come home to help me get onto that page and get experience it the way everybody else would. So why are we here today with this webinar? Because you as agencies are also kind of leaving thousands on the table by not selling accessibility services. Clients are looking for your leadership. Even if they don't bring up accessibility, it's your opportunity to start the conversation and become the expert they trust. So today we'll show you how to turn the recurring this revenue and stronger relationships and land bigger deals. Next slide. So with this slide, accessibility requirements are no longer just in the US. We've got the European Accessibility Act, updates under Title II. We've got Canada's AODA, we've got new DOJ guidance, and all around the world, there's different global regulations. If your clients serve customers in different regions across the world or plan to bid on international contracts, they'll need the accessibility built in for their digital presence. So you can get them where they're going and starting now. Next slide. So this is a very important stat to know. 92% of business owners expect their agencies to deliver an accessible website. So, but most don't understand what this means or how to get it done, and that's where you come in. When you explain accessibility, offer solutions, and guide them through the process, you're not only setting the tone, you're winning their trust, and you're elevating your role. Next slide. So by the end of this session, you'll know exactly how to position VPATs and accessibility audits as premier services, helping your clients compete and win new contracts. Now I'll pass it over to Shoya for a quick refresher on accessiBe's full suite of accessibility solutions.
Alrighty. So I just want us to discuss the full suite of solutions. So you have, again, a holistic approach to accessibility. And this is what it would look like. As you guys may know, we're well known for our Access widget. Our Access widget is our industry-leading technology that's implemented into the website, quick install. This is what we are anchored to and what we're known for. And with the Access widget, this basically is the quickest way for agencies to give their clients that access to accessibility that they're looking for without getting into any type of manual accessibility or any type of laboring work. And it's the most affordable way to provide that WCAG compliance that that client would need. Next, we have the Access Flow, and our Access Flow is our developer dashboard. This is for the more technical client that prefers to basically nurture multiple domains accessibility at once. They have a real-time look into their accessibility. If they're building out any new design, they could do so while simultaneously integrating accessibility into that environment while adhering to that branding and marketing look that they still want. So you still have the look and feel of the website you need. However, you also have the capability of implementing accessibility. There is a AI-powered component to Access Flow, and a lot of it is also manual work for the developers. But there's a whole ticketing system that could also organize their workflow, whether they use Jira or otherwise. This is a great, great, great dashboard just to manage multiple domains. And if you have the resource of developers that could do that manual fix, and on a, I would say, quite often, that's the best way to describe Access Flow in that dashboard. Next thing, we have the Access Services. Access Services is all manual accessibility. This is where we will have that manual source code audit that comes to play, which is fantastic for different industries, but quite collectively everyone. The Access Flow, not Access Flow, sorry. The Access Services with the audits, we look at the source code. So we look for any type of accessibility gaps that might be in the source code. And then we provide the solutions to those gaps so the developers could actually remediate that site or that web application or that mobile application. That's what makes the source code audits so dynamic, because it does not limit to just websites. It is something that could go over into web apps, which we know a lot of your clients may have that, or native applications like iOS and Androids, which can also get to be hit with litigation as well. Not so much as websites, but we are seeing an uptick with the native applications. So it's a great way to button up a company as a whole that may have multiple digital environments. We have the VPATs. And the VPAT, just for anyone who doesn't know, the VPAT is that voluntary product accessibility template that is regulated by the federal government here in the United States of America, which is basically a snapshot of the environment's accessibility and used as a certification or validation based on the template. Which is fantastic if you are in the government sector, healthcare, education, or you're a vendor to those industries. And if not, there is an effect that could happen when it comes to ROI, and I could get into that a little bit later on. So this is a very cost-effective product to have. And then we have the PDF or any other type of file remediation. We're seeing that a lot with the healthcare, higher ed, and a lot of government clients, especially with Title II regulations that is coming up. And for a lot of people, that deadline is in April of 2026, while for other people, it may be for August 2027. I could go into the details a little further on about the differentiating factors of that, but that's just kind of a high level. I think I rambled on too much, but yeah. So I also wanted to go into the court-affirmed access widgets role in compliance. We're based here in New York City, and which is the most litigated states of the United States of America, the most litigated state, but we do see an uptick since COVID of almost 300% of the lawsuits that come in. So this is not limited to us, but to the US as a whole. And what I mean by that is we have very valid lawsuits that come, but we also have the ambulance chasers that would utilize the lack of knowledge that a lot of the agencies we have or the business owners will have to then send out frivolous lawsuits to have a quick settlement and then take advantage of those type of companies. This is very harsh, especially if you have a lot of SMBs and mid-market clients rather than large enterprise clients with lawyers on staff that could tackle something like this. So in this particular instance with the Dr. Hidalgo case here in New York City, this is great because the access widget was affirmed by the US court. It was the Eastern District Court of New York City as being a reason why this lawsuit got thrown out. This lawsuit was dismissed because of the access widget being proved as something to help provide accessibility in that environment, but also the litigation support that we provide, which you have a dedicated case manager on the team to go over your claims to see if there's any type of truth to those claims, and to also provide what's called proof of effort to then say, hey, this is how we've been supporting the client side, so on and so forth. The cherry on top of us getting that dismissed was an audit report that we provided for the client. The audit report is that source code remediation that I mentioned to you earlier. So we're showing you here the marriage of the automation world tying together with that manual world for the best layered golden standard when it comes on to digital accessibility. So we could go on. Okay. So the revenue that you guys are missing today when it comes to manual accessibility is because I think we don't talk too much about manual accessibility. We understand the widget is AI powered, it's really quick to add into that website. But like the Dr. Hidalgo case, there are going to be components to or situations in which a manual accessibility is necessary for that golden standard of compliance, like I mentioned to you before. So the services that we offer is the VPATs. If any of you that's on this call right now, if you have any type of clients that may fit into the industries that I mentioned earlier, which is that anyone that is federally regulated, schools, hospitals, just any type of government entity, or you sell to those entities or your clients sell to those entities, it is good to know that you actually have to have a VPAT. They could lose funding if they try to get into a new vendor, and at that vendor doesn't have VPAT. They have to show their VPATs. Their vendors have to show their VPATs. The good news and the ROI that comes with the VPATs, though, is it opens you up to a plethora of clients that you couldn't otherwise do business with because they need the certification. That's the good news about the VPATs. The audits itself, so audits are fantastic because, especially how we do audits here at accessiBe, we look into the source code to see what the gaps are. However, our audit also shows you what the widget is fixing. And a lot of times the widget is taking care of the brunt of the issues. So what falls outside of the automation is in the code. And then that is the only thing that the developer has to focus on. So it cuts your time down drastically instead of doing an audit that is quite tedious, all the solutions implementing that from the very beginning to the end. So they have that partnership with the widget. The good news too is that with the audits, we categorize the issues from the most critical to the least critical, what's considered a general issue and what's considered a localized issue. This is great for clients who may have gotten in a lawsuit before, a client who wants to get to the gold standard of what accessibility could look like for them, which, as we know, accessibility is always an ongoing effort. We want to make sure that there's no critical accessibility issues that will bar someone that uses assistive technology. And so this is actually a great tool to pitch to clients who wants that standard, or they may actually be in a federally regulated or highly regulated environment that they actually need to have the best of the best type of accessibility. We are also talking about the file remediation. File remediation is easy. This is an easy way to, one, again, pick up that money that's left on the table and also provide the end users the accessibility that they need. A lot of websites may have, even if it's a retail website, think of even like a Home Depot or a smaller type of company like that, that sells tools, that sells equipment. They have to have PDFs added into the environment that basically describes the tool. While accessibility, even if we do it manually or automated, takes care of the site, it does not count the digital assets like PDFs that are added in. So those have to be made individually accessible before being added into the website. Then we have user testing. User testing is great. We have, yeah, we could definitely skip to the other ones. Okay. So let's get into VPATs. So the VPAT is that Section 508 compliance report that we have. Like I mentioned to you before, it is like the certification. It is a snapshot of your accessibility. So whether you have the greatest accessibility into your environment or horrible accessibility in your environment, it will just accurately reflect what is being presented. A VPAT has to be conducted by a certified third party for validation. Way back when people used to do them themselves, but that is something that is not recommended because it will be rejected. I've seen it so many times. They are, the evaluations are against WCAG 2.0 and 2.2 to the AA standards, but I've actually been performing, my team have been performing VPATs to 2.1 or 2.2, which houses everything else down to 2.0 anyways. It basically gives you support, partially support, and does not support throughout all the criteria. Like I mentioned to you before, this is a voluntary product accessibility template. So there's requirements and criterions you have to meet. A specialist from my team will manually go into that environment, do an assessment based on the template, and they will just give a feedback if this meets the criteria, if it doesn't meet the criteria, if it partially meets the criteria. It includes marks and explanations to the failed areas, but it will not give you the solution to rectify that because that's not what a VPAT does. So this is just a sample of basically what the VPAT looks like as a thorough breakdown to the environment. You go ahead. Okay. So the accessibility audit, this audit has to be done to the standard minimum of to 2.1 to the AA level. We have the capability of doing it to 2.2, which is typically required by our European clients, since that is not the regulated standard of compliance. And basically, when we go ahead to do this, what we are auditing is the templates into the environment. So we do not assess the pages. We look at the templates, the unique templates, because we understand that issues will repeat throughout pages. We look at everything from the UI components to the back end aspect of it, which includes operability. If someone is trying to navigate a menu, make a certain selection, where does it need an ARIA label, alternative text, just to look at it as a whole, what is missing, even to the color contrast aspect of it. This will take a longer time than implementing the widget itself. It does take, I would say, a little bit over a month to get an audit completed, which is quite quicker compared to a lot of our competitors. But this is the best way for anyone to see the accessibility into the environment. And this has to be conducted by a trained specialist. And they do utilize assistive technology tool when they conduct this, including a screen reader. You can go to the next. Awesome. So this is a sample of what the audit will look like. You actually get two outputs for the audit. You will get a PDF output, and you will also get a Excel output. The Excel output is great for developers who want to integrate the fixes into the environment more easily, whereas the PDF is just for readability purposes. There are snapshot elements that's in there. But if you take a look at this sample right here, we tell you a summary of where the issue is, what the actual location is, what the problem is, and what the solution should be. Sometimes the solution is a general text, and sometimes is a code swap. So this code right here is inaccessible. Replace it with this code instead. And that will repeat throughout the entire report. The turnaround time is approximately 21 business days after credentials are received. The good thing about this is you do get 2 hours of the consultant time with each audit that you do. So if your developers, you yourself have any question in regards to the results or anything of the sort related to this audit, you could actually meet with the specialist that conducted the audit and ask them the questions. Sometimes you could use 30 minutes, an hour, or the full 2 hours. It's entirely up to your discretion. Let's go to the next one. Awesome. So for the VPAT, how it works is you'll get a free quote. You submit it in your dashboard. So you submit a services request in your dashboard. You get a free quote in a business day. And then we actually look at, after we hop on a call, we ask about the environment, take a look at the environment. Then we ask that we get credentials to do a login to the environment so we could do the assessment. It doesn't have to be the actual environment, but it should be at least a sandbox that is identical to the environment itself. If a client is requesting that you provide a VPAT and they are in a very short time frame and that 21 SLA does not cut it, we could provide you what's called a LOE, so a letter of engagement, to then say, hey, you're in process of receiving a VPAT, whether it's 2.1, 2.2, whatever the situation is, and it will be provided at the exact date because we always let you know what that date is. It is signed off by the head of our accessibility team, and you could use that quite literally as a replacement for the VPAT until you receive the VPAT itself. Okay. I want you to understand that a lot of people do not understand the quality of accessibility until it is being broken down to them based on their industry. The good news about VPATs and audits and how it helps to win deals is ask your clients what it is that is important to them. Ask them if they have any type of contracts, or if you yourself as a agency have any type of RFPs. I do RFPs all the time with clients, and I also assist with that when it comes to types of services like accessibility. Especially with regulations changes right now, audits are actually being asked for more and more, and VPATs itself to prove that accessibility. A lot of times people are not even in the industry of 508 compliance, but they still would like to have a VPAT because they need something on their website to be housed on their website. So anyone that's visiting or ask what their compliance look like, they have a documentation that reflects their exact accessibility within that environment itself. The audit is just an extra layer of compliance that I highly recommend if the client have the budget for and they have the desire to do that, to do the extra work of getting the audit done, to make sure that there's no gaps that fall through the line of the automation that is just gone unrecognized. I always recommend to do the audit after the widget implementation, of course, because you need the widget to be taking care of a lot of the accessibility. And then you do the VPAT. So that's the order: widget, audit, and VPAT for the most pristine type of accessibility in a website environment. If we're talking about native apps or web apps, then it would be an audit, then a VPAT. Okay. So whenever your clients go after new contracts, accessibility documentation isn't optional, it's required. And that's so true. For EU clients, we have to provide what's called an accessibility statement to prove their accessibility. And in the US, we have to provide what is synonymous to that, which is the VPAT itself. And this is what I mentioned to you in the previous slide, that you don't necessarily have to be within the Section 508 industry or a vendor to that industry to necessarily want to get a VPAT to prove your compliance. That is one good documentation outside of accessibility statement that might be housed on your website, because it's actual proof based on an assessment that was done.
Shoy, you did a great job teaching all that. Like, awesome, awesome, awesome. So I feel like the big picture, kind of the takeaways, accessiBe's here for you to do the heavy lifting. So by teaming up with us, that means that you, as the agency, gets the credit, gets the revenue, gets the client loyalty, and we'll deliver the work under your brand, and you get kind of more to offer the value without stretching out your internal team. So teaming up together, we're going to do a lot of great work around accessibility. Next slide. So now that we've kind of covered the big wins for you, let's talk about what your clients need to understand to move forward with accessibility services. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Chandra.
Alrighty, so I like to say I did find Section 508, Section 508 found me. I'll tell you guys a quick story. A supervisor once asked if I'll help stand up our Section 508 office. And I thought to myself, okay, sounds like a zip code. Instead, I discovered a federal law that unlocks digital access for millions. So I taught myself digital accessibility because it wasn't covered in any IT course I've ever had or taught in any job or brought up in any IT job I've ever had. So the big question lies, what does Section 508 require? Section 508, which is part of the Rehabilitation Act, amended in 1998 and refreshed in 2017, is a legal requirement federal information communication technology, abbreviated ICT, to be accessible to people with disabilities. So any business or organization that receives federal funding, serves government agencies, or is itself a governing body must comply. So to be compliant, websites, web-based applications, and other ICT must conform to Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, abbreviated WCAG. That's WCAG 2.0 at level AA. This applies to technology used by federal employees into public-facing tech used to interact with government agencies. So there are a few key requirements. There's keyboard compatibility, which is fully functional without a mouse. There's screen reader compatibility, and there's captions and transcripts, and all pre-recorded and live audio videos must include captions and transcripts. There's alternative text that describe all alternative text for all non-decorative images. There's color and contrast that must meet WCAG AA contrast ratios, and no inaccessible timeouts, which means users must have sufficient time to complete tasks. There's procurement and documentation contracts must require accessibility. So agencies must document compliance, track progress. For example, the OMB report that I mentioned that I do for Congress for our agency. And this must remediate any gaps that are found. Next slide. So who does Section 508 apply to? So that's all federal agencies, contractors, vendors, guarantees, and third-party workers receiving federal funds or doing business with federal agencies. So that's public-funded entities, as you see here on the screen, education, healthcare, libraries, museums, partially funded organizations, and enterprises or small businesses tied to federal funding or services, even overseas, like operations and businesses and so forth. So if you want to do business with the federal government, you have to be 508 compliant to win those contracts. I would like to bring up also a case that set a legal precedence, Robes versus Domino's Pizza. In Robes versus Domino's Pizza, the Ninth Circuit Court in 2019, the court held that the ADA can apply to websites and mobile apps of businesses with physical locations. So the Supreme Court declined review, leaving the ruling in place. While that case involved the ADA, it underscores that digital accessibility carries legal risk beyond government contracts. Private organizations can be held accountable for inaccessible digital services. So why does all this matter? Section 508 is not just a checklist to appease auditors. It removes barriers so every user that's employee, contract, or public citizen can access information and service independently. Meeting WCAG 2.0 AA reduces legal and operational risk, lowers support barriers, and improves adoption and training outcomes, and strengthens mission and business effectiveness. Alrighty, next slide.
Chandra, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that incredible breakdown of Section 508. And I wanted to ask you, so what are some of the biggest mistakes that businesses make when they're trying to complete accessibility documentation without expert support?
So I believe there's an over-reliance on automatic scans. So tools catch some issues but miss systematic keyboard flaws, real-world assistive technology interaction, vague or unsupported claims of that it's accessible without evidence, test results or remediation plans, incomplete test coverage, ignore keyboard navigation, screen reader testing, captions, transcripts, mobile response behaviors, missing procurement controls, contracts without accessibility requirements, accessibility criteria, or remediational timelines. And then there's no user validation. So skipping testing with people with disabilities leads to false confidence.
Thank you, Chandra. And we're going to throw it over back to Shoya.
Sorry, guys, I was mute. Okay, so let us then get into the revenue in action aspect of it, where we could just discuss accessibility services and how to increase revenue per deal. So from the agency perspective, we're going to look into the widget only and widget and services and what that could look like for cost. So the widget scale is something that we launched this year that we have seen to be a tremendous help. And this is the hybrid of MTCR with the widget. The MTCR is the manual testing and customer remediation aspect of it, where a specialist in-house will go ahead and do a check of the site's core functions to see if there's any critical accessibility issues and remediate those issues. This is a huge selling component because we're able to target within the site any type of critical accessibility issues that we find, and we have an actual specialist in-house that will remediate that for you. The scale widget cost is $39.90. The commission on that for you as a partner is $7.98. And the agency price could be $15,000 with the agency profit of being $1,808. Again, the good news is compared to what other clients may be receiving, which is just a widget and not widgets are not one size fit all. You have the differentiating factor of having a specialist at least look into the website and fix those issues. They utilize a screen reader to find those critical accessibility issues, fix that. We create a whole report. So very strong selling component in that widget only space. Looking into the right, we have the widget and scale, which I already discussed what that MTCR does within that widget. We have the annual audit. So the annual audit cost is $8,500. When it comes to services here for accessiBe, there is no commission on there for the partners, but we create very competitive pricing compared to our competitors. So with that competitive pricing, you could go ahead and sell it at an agency price that could still provide for you a great profit. So what you will see is with the annual audit for the website is $8,500. The agency could also go ahead and sell that for $10,500 and make a profit of $2,000 from doing so. And you would still be within the comparative pricing when it comes to selling these manual services. We have done an extensive research to see what competitors are selling it for. Some of them are so ridiculous, astronomical when it comes to pricing, where it wouldn't give them a wiggle room for a partner like you guys to add your own pricing structure to it. When we look at the VPATs are $6,500. Again, there is no commission that is linked to that. However, you could sell that VPAT for $7,500 and make a profit of $1,000. How I explained to you and the structure initially of what we would need to do first, which is the widget, the audit, and the VPAT is your most comprehensive way of providing accessibility for that client. Adding the widget with the MTCR is a great first step into providing the website with the accessibility it needs. Then layering it on with a manual source code audit that is conducted once a year is also the best next steps. And like I mentioned before, and I just want to reiterate, the widget and the MTCR already is going to take care of a brunt of the accessibility issues. The annual audit will just show you what you need to identify and also fix, so there's no barriers for the end user, that there's no accessibility gaps that fell outside the automation that you didn't fix. And then you had the VPAT. After all, you made all those fixes, made all those remediation, the VPAT comes into play. The competitive pricing for that is $18,000 at cost, but you could sell this as a package for $23,000. So the agency profit is $5,000 when we're looking at everything that is broken down. And yes, that's what it would look like when it comes to a cost breakdown. We could go to the next steps with that one. And actually, just to go back to that a little bit, I just want to make sure that you understand that this will not fit every single client that comes. We understand that there's going to be smaller clients. So I always pitch this for our enterprise clients. So anyone that has a website visits of over 100,000 monthly visits, they tend to have the budget and the investment, and they could definitely do something like that to put them ahead of the curve compared to their competitors. Then we could go to the next slide. Okay, so we have to stay on top of the compliance and regulatory recommendations, just because there's so many, depending on your country, regulations that's taking place right now. June 28th of 2025, we had the European Accessibility Act enacted. We saw a crazy uptick when it comes to the clients that were reaching out to us directly and clients that were reaching out through the accessibility partners for their to help meet their standard of compliance. What that looks like is previously the EU, who is ahead of everyone on a global scale when it comes to their accessibility standards, they had their public sectors taking care of the accessibility. They were responsible for accessibility, but I must say with the Europeans, they do care about the end user, the public as a whole. So even for private companies, they were adding some type of accessibility into the environment, but now it's regulated. We are now in the month of September. However, there's still people that have not yet enacted a lot of the regulations when it comes to the EAA. So what that would look like is, if you're in certain countries in Europe, and if you have less than 10 employees and less than $2 million in revenue, you don't necessarily have to comply to this, but you could do that as just to show brand reputation. However, if you have greater than 10 employees and or greater than $2 million in revenue annually, you must comply to these standards of regulations, which includes an accessibility statement after all the accessibility work is being done into your environment. So when you know it's regulated, this is something that is not a question of maybe or should I, but a question I need to. And then if we go over to the ADA Title II, this affects us here in the United States of America, specifically in any industry that has to deal with the government. And actually for the EAA, I just want you guys to know as well that even if you are an American brand or a Canadian brand, or wherever you are geographically speaking, if you provide any type of goods or services to EU clients, you still must comply to the EAA accessibility. So that includes having at least an accessibility statement after you've completed meeting the guidelines minimum WCAG 2.1 AA into that digital space. The ADA Title II is any type of government sectors that are greater than 50K serving population. They have a deadline of April 24th, 2026. And if you have less than 50K serving population, so those smaller municipalities, government agencies, local, state, then they have until 2027. What this would look like for them is to have the Access widget, the audit, VPAT, and PDF, or any other type of file remediation. What we're seeing is a lot of those people are actually archiving the PDF remediation because they're so backed up, thousands of files. They need to focus on taking care of the accessibility in the website itself first, and then gradually making their way to digital assets. We're in September, this is in April, but this is a very tight timeline. especially if they have a lot of information on their site that may be in the digital asset space. So I would get talking to these clients as soon as possible. So how to pitch a VPAT and audit. Funny enough, when we had to transition from internally at accessiBe to really talk about what we want to do as a company to make sure that we're meeting our clients' needs, we talked about how we wanted to mention manual accessibility. And we wanted to know how to mention manual accessibility because a lot of people thought, oh, you just slap a widget on the website, you're completely done. They did not want to do the work with audit and VPAT. So it might be hard to explain to your clients that this is something that they need to do. And how I overcame that conversation was to allow them to know that regulatory changes are full in effect. And if it wasn't in full effect yet, we're actually going to get full in effect pretty soon. And again, we see that with the EU regulations in Title II. And beyond that, we want to make sure that we actually truly make our environments accessible for people with disabilities. It just so happens that there's a return on investment that is attached to that from a business perspective. So when we're looking at the audit, we could pitch the audit as something as an extra layer onto their accessibility. The lawsuits are getting quite vicious now. They're getting a huge uptick. So you want to make sure that they're protected. And we can't stop a lawsuit for coming in, but we could do our due diligence of making sure that we layer on our accessibility. Accessibility guidelines and compliance always change. We have to stay ahead of those changes as to not get caught up. If you pitch it as something like that and limit the possibility of them actually getting through a suit. Think again, the Dr. Higaldo case that I mentioned to you earlier that had both the widget and audit. The suit was tossed out because they were buttoned up. All the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed. Then we have something as a VPAT. Sandra did a really good job of explaining Section 508 compliance, and VPAT is tied to Section 508 compliance. So if your client knows that they're receiving any type of federal funding, mandatory, they have to get a VPAT. If they know that they are basically vendors to anyone that is within that industry, they have to get a VPAT. And what I see is a lot of times people are trying to do contract renewals. They can't get the contract renewal because they have no VPAT to actually show where their accessibility is. They have lost RFPs because they do not have a VPAT to certify what their accessibility looks like. So this is just a big requirement that is coming up right now, and that is how I would pitch it to them.
Thank you so much, Joya. And we've made it to the end of the Q&A. We've got a few minutes left, so I know there's some questions that were put in the chat, so any questions that you did have, we'll make sure your account rep follows up and answers those for you. I do have a few questions that we can go through if we have time, but here are some of the questions that we often get that partners want to hear from, like you. So Chandra, won't these services prove we have accessibility gaps, is what partners often ask. How would you answer that? I think you're on mute. Okay.
Yes, and that's the point. Identifying gaps let us prioritize fixes, reduce legal and operational risk, and improve mission performance. Transparency is how we move from reactive patching to proactive, secure, and usable systems.
Awesome. Thank you. I got another one for you. My client just wants to be compliant. How do I explain the value?
So compliance is the baseline. The real value is in usability, fewer support tickets, broader user adaptation, and better training, retention, and reduced legal exposure. So accessible systems are more resilient, easier to maintain, and directly improve workforce efficiency. So compliance becomes a force multiplier and not just a checkbox. So accessibility is technical policy and lived experience. So when we build with everyone in mind, we strengthen our business and the people who rely on our tools.
Perfectly answered. And Shoy, I got one for you. This is a partner's question. Can we white label these services?
We definitely can white label these services, and this goes back to the pricing structure that I broke down earlier. So if you wanted to sell this as a package with the widget, the audit, the VPAT, or a la carte, you could definitely do so. You could add your company's information on there instead of having accessiBe as the company that's listed. Just like how you do it with the widget, you could definitely white label the services.
I love it. And we got 2 minutes left. So if you can give me a 1 minute answer, what else should we know?
What you should know about services is this is just, it will never go away. This is the direction that we're heading right now with digital compliance, manual audits, VPATs, file remediation. You're going to hear a lot more about it. You're going to see a lot more about it. So I would recommend start prioritizing that now.
Love it. And I just wanted to let everybody know, everybody that was part of this webinar, everybody that stayed to the end, you guys are awesome. You all are awesome. You know, we are, I said it earlier, we're stronger together. We have to educate the world. We have to educate our clients. We have to, nobody wakes up saying, I want to block people from disabilities from accessing our website and accessing our services. Every business wants to help as many people along the journey as possible. So bringing accessibility brings in more people, creates brand loyalty, and it also helps them, you know, be compliant and avoid headaches down the road. Litigation, as a trial attorney myself, litigation's not fun when you're getting served those papers and the time it takes, the money it takes, the heartache it takes. Your focus should, as a partner, you should always want your clients to focus on what they do best. And together we can team up to make sure that they get to do that and we get to do it together. So thank you so much for being on this journey with us. You guys are all awesome. And again, have a beautiful, beautiful day. And thank you for being a part of this with us. Thanks, everyone. And Chandra and Joya, awesome job today. Both of you
Thank you.
are wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.